I remember, I mean, we've all heard of midlife crisis and understanding that there's this big thing that happens midlife, which, what would we define as midlife now? Just to be politically correct, before I say a number and everyone's like, that ain't me. I ain't going through that. But, you know, about 45, yeah, I was gonna say like, yeah, going into 50s maybe, you know. But what I didn't hear about and what I kind of experienced was a quarter life crisis. And I remember just being like, I'm only 25, why am I feeling all these things? And having a sense of like identity crisis. So are there some key moments in people's lives, key transitional moments that you encounter in your work that people might not be aware of, that you delve into frequently in your work?
So when I talk about my little topic, my 10-minute topic, I will actually go through the lifespan and talk about different transition points. But the one I specialize in is exactly that, the quarter life crisis. There is such a thing as a quarter life crisis that happens between 25 and 30. You've left college, you're not quite under your parents' care, you're on your own, you're navigating career, you're trying to figure out if you're going to get married or not. So that's a big one, and I specialize in that. Then there's actually the midlife crisis that I don't like to call the crisis. It's a midlife transition. That's what it is. It's a crisis if you're not aware and you're not informed. So there's the midlife transition. And then there's another little known, less known transition called marriage. That's another area that I help people with. A marriage is a huge transition. You're inviting somebody else to do life with you, and you're going to have to make it work somehow. And that's a major transition. So those are the three big ones, but I'll mention in due course. So I want to start by saying that transitions are a given. The very fact that we're sitting here, we're all over 12, 13, 14, 20, maybe 20, yeah? You're still 20? Yeah, okay. The very fact that we're sitting here means we have all transitioned. We've all gone through transitions. And I want to talk about 7 major transitions of life. The 7 major ones are from womb to world. That's a major transition. I remember having had my son, and we step into the car to go home, and we're on Langata Road. That's when it was a single carriageway. It was a single carriageway. And we're going home, and in front of us is this huge truck belching the worst fumes possible. And all I could think of, what kind of world have I brought my little child into? And I wanted to swallow him back, preserve him from the world. So that's a major transition, not just for mom, but for baby. Baby has been in the womb. It's been air conditioned, warm water, I think. Whatever it's called, the stuff he was in there, he's come out into the world, and it's different. There's a shift and a change. That's the first biggest transition we all go through, the fact that we're sitting in here. The second major transition is from infant to toddler, also called terrible twos, but I want to change that and say it doesn't have to be terrible, it can be terrific, depending on whether we are informed and equipped. So that's another major life transition. The next major one that we all know is teenage. In teenage, let me just go back to the toddler. The toddler is transitioning from being fully reliant on mom to being independent. They're crawling, they are toddling, that's what it is. They're toddling, they are wanting to experience the world for themselves. So at least physically, they detach from mom and they want to get on their own. It's a major transition. Teenage is a transition from being the child to getting into adulthood. We change, our hips, the boys deepen their voices. The stuff is happening because there's a transition happening. And we're coming from, always, as you think about transitions, think of them as I'm coming from the known to the unknown. And that's what can create a crisis. And it doesn't have to be a crisis when we know what to expect. The next big transition, Sharon, is that transition of I'm done with college. Often parents will say, if you're done with your first degree or that tertiary level education, you're on your own. Like if you want to do your master's, most parents, you're on your own, like fend for yourself. And that's a huge transition. And the young person who is 25, around 25 to about 30, they're making huge difference. They're detaching from home and they're getting into a world of work. They're trying to figure out who am I going to marry? Am I going to even get married? They're trying to figure out where shall I live geographically, because obviously we don't always have to live where our parents. We are launching out. It's a huge transition, and I'm really excited that the research is now really delving into that age group and saying, you know what, this is a real transition, and somebody needs to help those people. One of those people I can help. And then the next major transition we all know is midlife, also called crisis. I want to say transition. Now, if you had asked me before I transitioned into midlife that whether women go through this, I thought, no. I thought it was a preserve of men. I thought they're the ones who transition, buy Volta boots, what's they buy? Yeah, sports cars, the shades come on, and the leather jacket, yeah. I thought it was a preserve. I really thought it was a preserve of men until I myself went through that, and I'll share my story in a little bit. And then the next transition is, I want to call it retirement, but recently I heard someone describe it as retire, you know, like the tire on a car? Retired, you're being retired, like we're getting new tires for the next season, and I like that. I like that because it means you still have a journey. You still have miles to drive and to get around. You just you're being rebranded and being retired so that you can do something new, something. And that's a stage of life that a lot of people have. They have so much knowledge, have a depth of experience, and they're asking themselves, what can I offer? What can I offer to the world? And we want to plug in with those people because they are wise, and sometimes we think they're just old. They're not old. They are so wise. They have a lot to offer. The seventh is obviously, anyone know? Death. Death is a transition. And I want to say death is unique because it can come anywhere along the lifespan. Often we want to hope that it will come at that later point, but it can come earlier, and we need to be aware of that. Then there's two other transitions that are not age-based, so they're not on that, what shall I call it? They're not a lifespan transition, but they are transitions in and of themselves, and that's parenting and marriage. And I say they're unique because not everybody gets married, and not everybody becomes a parent. Those are transitions, but they are so major and they're so life-changing because with parenting, you're bringing someone into your life, someone you didn't know. Sometimes it's some people's. And we can, when we know, when we're cognizant, when we're aware and we have knowledge, we can make a good transition. The other thing we can do through a transition to be successful rather than to be in crisis mode, the other thing we can do is connect with your Creator. He's not surprised by transition. He knows transition is a good thing because you're coming from the known and you're being stretched to grow into the unknown. So the unknown scares us, but it doesn't need to scare us if we are connected with the God that made us and He's able to help us to know what season about. What am I doing in the next season? The next thing you want to do is number 3 is community. You want to transition in community. This here is community. We're doing like girlfriends and women and people. You want to plug in with a community of people because then you can have conversations and you can normalize the transition. If you're doing parenting, don't do it alone. Find like what you do. You can find other parents, other moms to do life with, and then it normalizes what you're going through, and then you can grow together. If you're going into marriage, don't do it alone. Go into a premarital class. Find people that are doing this as well. And then you can have those conversations and support one another. If you're parenting teens, don't do it alone. Find another group of people that are parenting together. You can learn and grow. All I'm saying, community critical. The thing that you need to be able to do in order to thrive well is to find coaches. And I'm using the word coach to be an umbrella term for any manner of people, like a mentor. Find a woman that's gone ahead of you. Ask them questions. Connect with them. Let them speak into your life. Let them tell you things. You want to connect with a professional coach, if you can. They are equipped. They are professionally to help you through transition. You can connect with a counselor, a therapist. Depends on your need. Please connect. Don't do it alone. Find those people. So I said 4 things that can help through a transition. The first one is be aware, just cognition. I like to use C's because they help me to remember things. I'm not so bright. I need to remember through C's. All right. Be cognizant. So cognition. Work with God, your Creator. Be in community, and also. All right. And my midlife story is one that I know that if I hadn't had these things, it would have been a flop. I was going through a lot of physical changes, just hormonally. I didn't know then. I was just going through such hormonal changes. I was going to doctors. They were running tests and telling me, there's nothing wrong with you, Irene, but at this rate, you're going to be very sick. Because I had panic attacks. My body was just all over the place. It was pure panic attacks. And it took someone to tell me that is normal. Like, that is normal. My help, what helped me was those mentors and all, and the awareness and God. Those were my 3 big helps. And I want to say, I help coach people through transition, through midlife transition. That's a big one for me. And we have a program for that. We also help coach through quarter life crisis. My husband and I do a program called 30 by 30, which is really 30 things I wish I had known at the time I was 30. So we share a lot of personal experience with that as well. And we also help transition people into marriage through premarital counseling into marriage. So that's me.